Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I wanted to show you a little process of what I do with my white tissue paper. Now, I receive quite a bit of white tissue paper as packaging. It seems to be fairly popular, and I like to repurpose it and give it a little bit more life and then reuse it. I do like to dye my tissue paper just usually so it coordinates with a gift I'm giving or a card I'm giving or I don't know, something. So I like to have a stash of it on hand that I can kind of grab and it's all nice and dry and ready to go. But while I was creating these dyed tissue papers, I always lay them down on a piece of paper to dry. And then I was like, those pieces of paper are stunning, so let's use those too. So I'm going to take you along on the process that I do when I am dyeing them. So I use my Waffle Flower stencil mat, anything non-porous that you can pop some inks onto. I'm using the Distress Oxide inks today. And I'm sure there are many mediums that you can use to dye these, absolutely. So I generally choose a couple of different colours that are somewhat similar. It doesn't really matter. Add a little bit of water, and then I have a piece of tissue paper, and then I have a piece of paper off to the side ready to go. Now I add plenty of water to these, and I want to, eventually I will end up dyeing the whole piece of tissue paper, but even if there are some white spots, I'm happy with that. I kind of like that look. Often I will scrunch these up a little bit when I do have them for the gift, so I'm not too worried if there are some white spots or if there's a little bit left over, but I'm going to be a little bit more purposeful when I put them down. So I want to make sure that there are lots of sort of crinkles and creases and all good things. Now, obviously, with the leftover ink, you can keep going until you're absolutely out of ink there. This is what's left over for this one. I decided to add a bit more re-inker on top of this, so it doesn't matter which side I add it to. I just want to get rid of those really big splotches here. Now, here's a lesson learned. Have the piece of paper ready to go, because when I leave it into one hand, it tends to stick to each other. So I usually pick it up with two hands and pop it down, and it's fine. Have your piece of paper ready to go. Now, all those wrinkles and things, I want them to completely stay there, and I'm just going to sort of press down on gentle little pieces so that we get some texture, but I still want lots of colour down if we're going to be reusing these bottom sheets. So I do find you can take it off straight away, absolutely, or you can definitely leave them on to dry. Now I add a little bit more of the blue re-inker here, then I add some more water just to break up some of that really deep dark purple colour. And then even with just that one little bit that I put down, I like that look there for the print, so I'm going to stop there. But that doesn't mean that I can't keep continuing with the same piece and get more prints from this pattern as well. If you don't like what you get from the first time, just mop it around here, there and everywhere and just see what you get. There is definitely, this is one of those sort of art pieces that you just need to let control of, and not all of them will be perfect. Maybe not all of them will be usable, but absolutely they do create a very fun pattern, and it's a great starting point as well. Now for this one, I wanted something a little bit lighter. I'm changing the colours up, definitely. I've got some old paper and some cracked pistachio, and I've got my piece of paper ready this time, so I'm doing better already. Pop my little piece of tissue paper down, add a bit more water, spritz it from both sides, and then I'm just going to sort of pick up as much ink as I can and then pop it down. There is no rhyme or reason that says this has to be perfect. It says that you have to have the ink in all different places, and I kind of just end up putting it back and forward, and you see what you get. It's a really fun technique where not too much can go wrong because there is no perfect sort of look. Now, if you want a little bit more, you can always add a bit more ink. This is going to obviously take some away from your tissue paper, so I guess it depends on how dark or deep you would like your tissue paper to be. But this is truly one of those things that's a little bit addictive, and you could just keep going. This one here I let dry on the paper, and that's the results that I got from those ones, whereas the other ones I kind of took them off wet. And again, completely up to you. There's no right or wrong. So here are 3 of these images. This one is pretty light, but as you'll see today, we can do something beautiful with it. This one here is probably my favorite in the middle, and it looks like there's so much texture, but obviously it's completely flat. This one here is still a little bit wet, honestly, but it will dry and be gorgeous. But I'm going to let that one dry, and I'm going to use this really light green one here because we are going to use this as basically a starting point, a bit of a jumping board from here. And I'm going to take the Flip Flop Circle stencil from Simon Hurley. So this is just what I'm going to do. Anything you can kind of take these ideas and mold them as to what you have on hand. You might have other backgrounds that were created in completely different ways that you can sort of add these techniques to. I'm going to take the two colors that I used in the background, so old paper and cracked pistachio, so nothing different, not introducing any new colors. But I'm going to use this stencil here as a more saturated version of the exact same colors. Now, I was watching Simon demonstrate this one, and this seems like a really sort of simple stencil. However, there seems to be lots and lots of different ways to use it. So I'm going to use it in one of the ways that I saw him demonstrating today, where we can turn it around and complete the circles. Once I have got the ink down, now I wanted to go for sort of a random pattern and not complete coverage and completely perfect. So that's a struggle for me because I like things to be nice and neat. But I do just tell myself it's okay if this doesn't work out. It's just paper and craft, and it's okay. It's great to go outside my comfort zone. So I flip the stencil around 180 degrees, and then I'm able to fill in the other side of the circles. Now you can do all sorts with this. You can sort of make sure it lines up. You can make it off center. I really liked this, and it seems such a simple design and yet absolutely gorgeous. So I sort of filled in the other half of where the old paper circles were, whilst trying not to fill in completely all of the background. Now from here we are going to trim this down, so this is more of a card front size, and this I just sort of trim one side and then keep trimming around. I really don't measure at this point, and I'm not too worried if I end up with a 4 by 5 1/4 inch card front or a 3 3/4 by 5 inch card front. It's just sort of whatever ends up working with the pattern that I have. I can definitely make anything work, so we can change it up just depending on what size we end up with. Now, in my most recent order from scrapbook.com, I got a freebie, and the freebie was this cozy wreath shape dies from scrapbook.com. A pretty cool freebie. They had two freebies. They often have one, or definitely one, if not two, that you can always add to your cart for free, and that's pretty good value, and I really like this. Maybe it might not have been something I picked up by myself. However, I really like this, and that's also another cool thing with the freebie. Now, the one on the right hand there that has the little indent, that is the separate die that's in the pack, whereas the other two that I was holding in my hand, they came from the inside of the wreath. So I like having a couple of different options that you can swap in and out, and then I actually end up changing my mind here. I wasn't sure at all where I was going with this card, but I did die cut out two of these. They die cut beautifully, and I'm going to layer these up just so they're a little thicker. I think that definitely improves the look of a die cut on your card front, but absolutely not necessary at all. And my plan at this point was to cut this wreath in half and have half coming out one side and half coming out the bottom, like with the top right hand corner and the bottom left hand corner. That was my plan. Now, just as a sentiment to go on here, I have this gorgeous Santa stamp set that I have been talking about recently. It's called Santa Claus Comes Tonight from Picket Studios, and this is one of these Santas that I chose to invest in this year. So you're going to be seeing him a lot, I'm afraid. He is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm just going to use this really simple little sentiment, and this is sort of a Christmas card, but very non-traditional colors, I would say. I mean, they're still greens, but relatively non-traditional. Now, this is where I was changing my mind, and I thought maybe I just want it right in the middle. And I thought I would have the sentiment in the middle, and then have the top right and the bottom left, and I knew my plan, and then I just thought, but look at this. Look how that looks. I really like that. So I completely changed my mind, and that's okay. I put some foam tape all around the back here, just cut some little pieces, and then made sure I had it around the circle so that it was nice and supported as well. It's a fairly sturdy piece by the time I added the two heavyweight cardstocks together to form the die cut, so I was pretty happy with how this was going to stay in place. But I'm going to pop this directly in the middle. Now remember, I have foam tape behind this when I go to change my mind in just a minute. So I really like how this looks. I press it down. I think that looks stunning. Even just that looks really, really gorgeous. Better than I kind of thought it would at this point. Now I have my sentiment to drop in here and I'm like, it covers up too much of the background. I lose my background and I don't like it. So I'm going to pop it out again. I do like the stamp. I do like how it looks. I just really love that background. So I decide to take the stamp anyhow and I'm going to pop it down. Now I have to be really careful because I have foam tape behind there already. And that means that my acrylic block is going to be held up by that foam tape. But I sort of was really, really careful and pressed it nicely and it all worked out perfectly fine. Obviously my foam tape is the right height for that stamp, so it was okay. It was all good. Then I added some double-sided tape behind here and popped it down onto my card base, and I really just left this as is. I absolutely love the simplicity of this and yet really gorgeous colours. I would do these again. But anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed my video today on how I go about dyeing my tissue papers and then what we can do with the leftover sheets. I'm sure there's lots of ideas that we could do with these, so this was just one today. Of course, I will have the supplies listed in the description box below in case you would like to go and check any of them out. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!